Welcome back to another episode of TVGP's Critical Misses. This season we are watching all of the Oceans movies, all the Oceans hits we've missed. I'm your host Boston. Joining me as always is Moonpier.
Hello.
This time we're talking about, haven't seen the movie yet. I'm assuming you've listened to some of these episodes before, but we haven't seen the movies yet. But this is 2004's Oceans 12, dropping like just 2 years after the first one, which seems pretty fast, but I guess if you want to lock down 500 people in your movie, you probably need to move pretty quick.
Yeah, I think at the time it was definitely fast.
Yeah.
I think the time between sequels has rapidly diminished since then.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at like Lord of the Rings, where it's like, all right, we've got
Rings,
legitimately
Potter,
45
yeah.
people in these movies. We're just going to shoot them all at the same time. Just going to shoot 400 hours of content, and then we're going to edit it down to like a tight 250.
Yeah, tight 250 times 3, and then a tight
Right.
3.5 times 3 for the extended cuts.
Yeah, I was thinking at some point, like, boy, I've never seen the director's cuts, like the big cuts of each one of the Lord of the Rings movies. Maybe we should do that for Critical Misses. And I was like, that seems like it's a not a burden or a bear to do this show, but it's more work than we were expecting. That would be like, all right, we're going to talk about it 1 week, and then next month we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, yeah, it's a lot of.
I'm not going to lie. I love the extended cuts for the Lord of the Rings series. I genuinely do love all 3 extended cuts. But that Return of the King extended cut is like 4 hours and 45 minutes, dude.
Oh my god. Does it add more endings?
It might do, I think so, yes.
Oh no. Anyways, Ocean's 12.
Yes.
I have seen this before. I've seen this once before. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I remember the scene.
The scene.
Yeah, where Julia Roberts is talking to herself.
She's not talking to herself, she's talking as herself.
Right.
Specifically to Bruce Willis, who is being Bruce Willis, talking to his good friend Julia Roberts, who is played by Julia Roberts, who is actually playing Tess Ocean, playing Julia Roberts.
You know, I've been watching. If no one was listening to the Outcasts here for TVGP, I've been watching a lot of the Arrowverse and really been enjoying the Flash. Maybe this is even too much metaverse for me.
This is insane.
It's a bad scene. It's a woefully bad scene from a movie that I remember enjoying. I feel like if I'll have any criticism going into the second half of it after we watch the movie, I'm going to assume that I'll feel like lightning can't strike twice.
Yeah. I think 11 held up really, really well. I genuinely do. The fact that all I can remember, like, I remember the pinch scene from Ocean's 11 where he covers himself up when he's about to blow up the huge EMP. I remember the backflip off the safe scene. I remember so many scenes from that first movie.
Yep.
Literally the only scene I remember from this is that scene.
Is the single-handedly the worst one.
Yeah.
The only thing I think I remember is that the bad guy from the first one like joins the team in this one, but that might also be Ocean's 13. So I don't want to say that.
I've not seen 13. I have not seen 13, so I don't know about that one.
13, my wife and I started watching it. We made it about halfway through, and we were like, maybe we're not in the mood for this right now.
Wow.
Not saying it's bad. It was just sort of like, I don't know if I feel like watching this right now. But yeah, this is part of the reason why Moon, you and I wanted to do this sort of short form movies was, I remember the first one very fondly, and then it's just kind of a big blank spot. And then we haven't seen Ocean's 8 because it's relatively recent.
Really recent, like last year recent, I believe, as well.
Oh, really? Okay. Which makes sense why I haven't seen it, because it came out sometime in the last 30 years.
2018, sorry.
2018, okay. Um, yeah, but I think I'm excited to see where the one of the things I didn't remember that we talked about at the end of the last episode was the two bodyguards, the two thugs from Benedict following everyone in the car at that very last shot. I sort of want to
Mhm.
see how that, if it, I hope it does, with how sort of tightly written these movies are. I want to see how that leads into this movie. And
Yeah,
then I'm kind of, it's almost like watching one of the Marvel movies where it's like, oh man, who's going to show up in this? You know, Captain America is always going to show up in it, but who's going to be the surprise? Oh, it's Spider-Man. Like, who's that in this one? You know, like, who's the
yeah.
who's the fun cameo that's going to show up in this one?
I already know one of the additional people who show up in this movie because I looked at IMDb,
Oh, okay.
and second build is one of the biggest female actors of all time, right
Hmm.
after Julia Roberts, probably. And she is second build. I think she was probably considered Julia Roberts' successor.
Okay. Yeah, she's fourth on the movie
The
poster here.
build
I
list.
have the Wikipedia open just to see what year it comes out on, but that's Catherine Zeta-Jones. Um,
Hmm.
and the wiki article says that the movie was significantly rewritten after Julia Roberts found out she's pregnant with twins. So I wonder how much of that was kind of like we need to sort of add some additional
Build a little bit.
players in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about that scene again.
It's yeah, it is. I
I
hope that people are watching these along with us. I'm not. No one's going to get upset if you've seen this movie 50 million times and you're just going to listen to both parts of this back to back. But I'm hoping that if you've never seen this movie before, you're watching this first segment or listening to this first segment, and then going and watching the movie, and then watching the second half. So you can sort of
Mhm.
head in hands, sort of be like, oh yeah, it's worse
It's
than I thought.
it's one of those things where like it's a like a common theory for me at least. I'm sure it's a wider thing, but if you have a completely mediocre movie and it
Hmm.
has a stellar ending,
Yeah,
that ending can elevate the whole movie to a different level.
yeah.
If you have an amazing movie and it has a horrifically bad ending, it lowers the rest of the movie down to that ending standards.
I think that's fair.
I
Yeah.
I can't think of another movie where one really bad scene makes me not want to see the movie as a whole, especially considering the scene is in the middle.
Yeah, it's like there've been very few like that. The only one I can think otherwise is one of the Matrix movies, the second or the third one. I think it's the third one, where there's just like a super long dance scene and it's just like
It's the second one.
and
It's
I'm
the
just
dance in
like
the caves in Zion. It's the
yeah,
second
it's
one.
like why is this so long? The other one too is the love scene in Watchmen, where it's like, please, this
Oh,
is
thank you for
45
ruining it.
minutes long. This movie is so good.
And it's in slow mo, and it's
Yes.
got that
Hallelujah.
famous yes, hallelujah
Yeah.
over it.
It's one of those where it's like, please, this, like, the camera's gonna cut and it's gonna, nope, there's still, it's, the whole song is gonna play, huh? This is,
Mhm.
okay. That's probably one of my, where it's like, God, this movie is so good and that scene is, seeing
That's
something
a
else, man.
It's another great example, actually. That's a
Mm,
genuinely fantastic film with that
yeah.
one scene. It's just like, I'm just going to skip that chapter on the DVD.
Yeah,
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
exactly. I don't care if I miss anything. Just hit that chapter skip. I'm just
Yeah.
let's keep this moving. Chapter skip. Yep. Well, that's probably a pretty good sign that we are ready to go watch the movie. We'll see
Mm-hmm.
you on the other side. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back. We have returned from watching the movie Ocean's 12. It's been a week, our time, and probably however long that clapping sound effect is, like 25 seconds. It's been about that long. Or a couple hours if you're watching along with us, which I still hope people are, because I think that's a fun idea. Um, we have finished watching Ocean's 12, which is I gotta say, I enjoyed this movie more than I remembered.
You know what? So did I. With one
Yeah,
major exception, we'll get to that closer to the end.
yeah.
Uh, but
Listening
yeah,
to the intro, you'll probably remember the problem. But
uh-huh.
yeah, I remember watching this movie and thinking it was okay, and I didn't remember anything about it, but I came out of it this time kind of liking it a lot, other than some problems near the end.
Mhm.
But I think the thing that I wrote down, sort of here's my number one note, was it seems very much like Soderbergh and his DP uh, took all that clout from, from the first one. It was like, cool, I made like a really cool Vegas movie. I'm gonna
Mhm.
make this weird thing, and like,
Yeah,
there's a shot in the intro where they're shooting the reflection of, I don't remember who it is at the fortune teller, the reflection of the ceiling where you can see him, and then they pan the camera down through like nothing super interesting until it gets to
it's
him
Frank.
and Terry's there. Um, oh, I
It's
thought it
Frank.
was
No, it's not Frank. It's Monica's
Rube.
dad from Friends.
Yeah,
Uh,
Ruben. I never remember his
yes,
name.
Ruben.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
him. And his immediate response is, "You couldn't see this coming,"
yeah,
which
and
is a pretty solid line.
it's really weird because I feel like most movies, number one, wouldn't have that shot because it's like,
Mhm.
I can't see the actor in like the middle third of the screen. And then when they move the camera from the reflection down to shooting the actual actors, which makes sense because there's all these unveilings of Terry where
What
sort of like,
everybody's doing and how Terry catches them all.
yeah, and he's just suddenly he's there in most of them. Um, it's such a great shot. And then there's another shot that I feel like only I would really love in this movie. The one where the where they're shooting a plane from underneath, flying across, but like it's
That is the
turned.
scene. That's the scene directly before the scene. That's
Yeah,
when they have to get Julia Roberts to Rome, and yeah,
right.
it's the plane taking off, and then I think it actually flips to the plane landing, and it's
Yeah,
literally like a phone video shot, like
yeah. It's like
portrait instead of landscape,
the
and then
direction is
they've just
weird.
shown it landscape. It's really weird.
Yeah, I really love it though because it's one of those shots where it's like, man, I've never seen a shot like this in movies. I mean, probably for good reason. It's like there's a Nine Inch Nails video for The Hand That Feeds. They shot it purposely in the wrong format, so it got
Mhm,
scan lines on it. So like everything looks like it's dragged out a little bit, and
mhm.
they did that purposely to make it look specifically a little bit weird. And
Okay,
this shot reminded me of that, where it's like it looks weird, and I know I haven't seen that in movies before, but man, is that cool.
I can tell you an accidental version of that.
Hmm.
When they shot Aliens, they
Okay.
shot it in the studios in London. I can't remember the name of it. It's one of the most famous studios in the world.
Hmm.
They shot it there, but they forgot that they were all using American equipment. And they were using like a
Ah,
hybrid of American and English equipment because what was available and what they brought with them. And the
interesting.
frame rates, like the whole for those kids among us here,
Right.
you might not know of PAL 50 and PAL 60,
Yeah.
which is the refresh rate on TV screens, which made it hard to buy import games from the UK or from America,
Yep.
flip those locations. It would come in black and white because the screen refresh rate was different depending on which
Oh,
side of the Atlantic you were on. So our screens
right.
actually refreshed a little bit quicker.
Right.
So in Aliens, during the scene where they're going to investigate the nest, um, the cameras the guys are wearing on them refreshes at an American rate, but the movie camera they're filming on um, refreshes at a normal rate. So when they put that footage into the VCRs for the control room, when it's recorded, it looks like it's getting a whole bunch of scan lines and jaggediness on it because
Interesting.
the screens are refreshing at a different rate to movie equipment being used to film the
Right.
screens.
That's cool. Man. So yeah, this movie, I like that they took the style. I think we praised the Ocean's 11 for having just a cool style to it, and they kind
Hmm.
of got a little weird with it. Like, obviously they're featuring Amsterdam is beautiful, and all these towns and cities they're going to are just this European beauty. And then they just kind of make things look a little bit weird. Um, I think it really works for this movie overall.
Yeah, like style wise, I don't think it looks as good as the original one. I think
Yeah.
like coloration wise and shot direction stuff, I think the first one was a masterpiece of cinematography. I think this is good. I don't think it's as good as that one.
Hmm.
I do like a lot of those stuff they did carry over though, like Rusty and Ocean being able to basically know what the other's thinking with like the conversations with like two words.
Yep.
Like one person says two words of a sentence and the other person says two words and a whole conversation takes place.
Yep. And on the
And just
flip
like,
side, I think it was really interesting during a lot of group scenes where like all the people are together. It feels like there was a little bit more ad lib there, where it's
mhm,
especially the first scene where they're in Amsterdam in that attic room, and there's all of them there kind of arguing about what they're going to do, and it felt like a conversation that would happen there would, where it's just like two or three conversations happening at once and they're all bouncing off of each other and they all kind of hate each other at the same time. Like it,
yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
yeah, that's a solid scene. I think the we talked about this in the fast talk, but I think they all came into their characters a lot more in this film. Like
Yeah.
it happened a little bit in the first one, and it irritated me a little bit in this one. It was the thief jargon.
Yeah.
Like the thief jargon is hilarious. I'm sure it's all real because there is a lot of thief jargon that is real. Like
Hmm.
honeypot, if you're a fan of Archer,
Right.
is a good
Right.
example that they use there. But they just started coming up with like, oh, three blind mice and two horsemen and the headless,
Right. And a Sally
knight.
Sue and a dinosaur. And it's like, what? Okay.
I love the fact that Matt Damon doesn't know what any of it means.
Hmm.
Like, it's just so good. These aren't real. None of these
Right.
are real. Nothing. What you're saying isn't real, is it?
Right. Yeah. He's just sort of like, this isn't real. Right? Are you guys
Mm-hmm.
sure? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I also have to call out the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is. I thought it was good in the first one, but I think there's enough of a variety in this one, and it's not. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. If it's licensed, it's not licensed in the way that it's like, oh, now we're in Amsterdam. He just quoted the lyrics to Kashmir, so that's gonna play in the intro of the next scene. It's like, no, we're gonna play like a
The heist music.
yeah, we're gonna play like finger picked guitar and harp song, and that's gonna play for
Mm-hmm.
like 4.5 minutes while people walk around this town.
Talking about montages, though, jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you liked Ocean's 11? You like the montages? Well, here's 15 of them. Oh,
Right.
you liked Ocean's 11? You liked heists? Well, here's six of them. And
Mm-hmm.
one is a heist within a heist within a heist. Hey, Christopher Nolan,
Right.
I hear about that new movie concept you want called Inception.
Check this out.
Check this out. Like,
Maybe your
come
kids will be
on.
ready for that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that. So I watched this movie. I wrote down all my notes. Um, and when I
Oh,
went to
actually,
sure, go
just
ahead.
before we move from soundtrack, I will give this much more credit than the first one because it only had a very brief snippet of that stupid Elvis remix in it. And I
Yeah,
absolutely despise that song because it was everywhere for about 5 years.
it was everywhere for so long, and like it's a
Hmm.
fine song, but not for
It's
5 years.
no, it's like everything else. It's really great. It is a
Yeah.
genuinely great piece of music. I think it's a fantastic remix of a really good Elvis song. But when it's on every commercial break on television
Yep.
for literally like 5 years,
For
it's like,
half a
oh,
decade.
this is the song you've chosen. Okay, like Sky Sports, it's a cable channel in
Hmm.
England, and every 5 or 6 years they'll pick a new song,
Oh,
and
okay.
that will be their song of choice for advertising the Premier League. Or
Mm.
24, they'll do the tick, 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 tick,
Right.
tick for 24, and whenever they advertise 24, there'll be that piece of music. They do soccer, so they'll be like, oh, it's the Premier League advert. For like 5 years, it was, I think, A Beautiful Day.
Okay. Okay. God.
So I really hate that song because of it.
Yeah. Another okay song, but
Hmm. and
Yeah.
then it switched to this song. So
Oh boy.
every commercial break while watching any channel that had any affiliation with Sky would have a Premier League advertisement for you to try and get you to
Boy.
up your subscription package. And
Right.
this was the song they picked. And it was just
Please
like,
make. If I upgrade, will you make it stop, please?
can I get a little less of this song, please?
Right.
And
Hey.
maybe a little more back to the action. Thank you very
Right.
much.
Um. So I wrote down all my notes, and when I was I don't remember what I was googling, but the Rotten Tomatoes rating came up, and it was like 42%. I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I went to go look at the Letterboxd reviews, and I feel like this is the other side of the coin from the second half of the Fast Saga movies. Like, by the time we got to like Fast 5 and later, I think you and I enjoyed that it was like, I'm gonna go get a car. Back 2 seconds later, back from a street race. I got 3 new cars. It's like, yeah, we know how they did it. I think the interesting thing about this movie is I'm gonna raise that house up on stilts. And it's like, I'm sorry, what? And then it's like 20 seconds later, the
This
heist is over and it's the next day. And it's just like, wait, what? Like, they're gonna go do it. The heist is gonna be successful until it kind of. I think the thing that frustrated people that I thought was really interesting is the first movie was a heist movie where feeling like you as the viewer being out of the loop felt pretty good. Like that reveal at the end of like, they already did it. But they didn't. Like twist, twist, twist. This one, it felt like the audience was way more out of the loop. And I think for 75% of the movie, that works really well, where it's like, oh, you went to go do the heist in this rich guy's house, and it's successful, except it wasn't the Night Fox. It's like, that was pretty interesting, and then we'll talk more about the ending, but I think that was an interesting choice of like, yeah, we're gonna raise this house up on stilts. It went well. All right, moving on.
Yeah, I think the thing is, because I think the thing that a lot of people like about heist movies is the planning and then the execution. I mean, like you said, like it either goes well or it doesn't go well, and you see the results of it not going well. And if it does go well, you see the the secret plan revealed later.
Right.
Like I think that's genuinely the thing this movie skips out on is the planning and the execution. It's like
right, because a lot of it is like
idea that will work, stolen the thing, and then
right,
like a montage in the middle of a very brief description of how they're doing it.
well, and a lot of what frustrated you in this movie is, I think, them saying like, all right, I think it's time for us to bring back the submariner's son, and everyone's like, yeah, I think that'll work. Smash cut to, oh, we did it, fam. It's just like, wait, what? I feel like I missed about 4 things here.
Yeah, like at least with the house one, he explains raise the house up, and the montage is like, okay, there's a little montage there. I'm fine with that one. It's all of the other stuff where it's just like, I don't understand what half these things you're talking about are, and then you're showing me it's executed successfully, and I don't know what it is.
And I think let's talk about the scene, because I feel like the thief jargon finally pays off, where they're like talking about doing a celebrity misdirection, and they have some name for it. I should have written it down. But like as soon as you hear that name, you're sort of like, okay, I think I'm putting the pieces together, because throughout the movie they keep talking about like, don't you think Tess looks like, and then was like, just don't tell her, don't, that's not a good idea. And by the time it pays off, it unfortunately pays off with cinema's worst scene in history, which
I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely down there.
I think the thing that makes it the worst for me is that it's like, so how do I put this? It's like Hollywood self-congratulatory, where it's like, isn't this funny? Like, these two people are friends, and we've got there's all these, like, I feel like it's an inside joke for celebrities, where it's like, oh, my people's people will call your people's babysitter because someone left something in my casita.
Pants thing in the bloody car.
Yeah, and it's just like I the scene moves so fast by itself. Even if Bruce Willis wasn't there, which
Which he
would be
should have been.
yeah, which would be great. The only thing that I think saves it is Matt Damon. I love when movies like
The
this,
Sixth Sense reference.
yeah, like they come in the middle of a conversation. He's like, "Well, I figured it out in X, Y, and Z," and the movie still worked for me. Like, I thought that was a really great one because Bruce Willis, even though you often hear that he is not great person, um, I like this little like window into like, sure you did. Yep. Like just this movie made bajillions of dollars and no one will stop talking to him about it. Like
Yeah,
I
it's like
liked
if
that.
everybody's so smart, how did it make $670 million theatrical?
Yeah. Like but man, that whole scene it's
It's
just
awkward. It's
yeah.
it's one of those things where, like, I think we've talked about it before. Like, I hate the Hangover movies. I hate those kind of movies because I don't like awkward humor. I just
Yep.
don't.
Yep.
I suffer from third-party awkwardness on your behalf because
Yeah,
you're going through something terribly awkward.
my wife also suffers from third party embarrassment. We're just like, oh, I can't watch this. Oh, it's so
Like,
bad.
I'll never watch It's Only Sunny. As great
Oh
as that
yeah.
show is supposed to be, I've heard that it's a bunch of people being mean and awkward to each other, so I will never watch it.
Yeah, and you're
I,
like, why would I do that with my free time?
Mhm. I don't need to put myself through that. Thank you very much. I
Yeah.
don't want to have 7 seasons of feeling awkward.
Right.
That's just terrible. It's very much Parks and Rec season 1. Very awkward.
Right. You're like
Yeah,
watching it through your fingers. You're like, oh no. Oh, is it over?
yeah,
No.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
like, I think that's its biggest sin is it just feels so awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, granted, Julia Roberts is supposed to feel awkward because she's playing as Julia Roberts, who is not Julia Roberts, and talks to Julia Roberts on the phone.
Right. Who is actually Julia Roberts? But yeah.
Yeah, hey Chris, that movie that you're thinking of, I've got an idea for you.
Right. So stupid. And I think from that point on, the rest of the movie stumbles a lot. I think that's like the beginning of the end for this movie feeling super cohesive. I think it eventually pays off because I
Mm-hmm.
think the actual heist itself of the Fabergé egg is interesting, even though it happens in like a minute. But then you have to go through that capoeira scene, which is so long and so terrible, on top of being like sandwiched right against this Julia Roberts doppelganger thing. It's just like you can't do both of them.
I think the thing with the capoeira thing is I think we're supposed to, as moviegoers and looking into the deeper meaning of the scenes presented to us,
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that we're supposed to take away from that is he didn't do that. He probably just shimmied across the roof or whatever and
Oh,
got down to the
he like
side.
Spider-Man climbed on the roof and he just wants to
Yeah,
tell a good story. Okay, interesting.
exactly. Because
Okay,
he is a thief all about his ego. Number one, let's
right,
break down the fact that this movie essentially just becomes an ego, like, urinating war between Danny
right.
Ocean and this guy. And it's just
Two
like,
people just plopping it on the table and being like, "All right, bring out the rulers." It's like, come on, guys.
yeah, which that's a little bit disappointing, especially
Right,
when you realize that literally the whole movie has essentially been a sham. They have been
right.
play acting all of these heists and everything else in the background.
And I feel like that's where so many people feel betrayed, where it's like,
Mm,
God, I've been with this crew and their ups and downs, and none of these heists have gone super well. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because of something they did a month ago
mhm.
before the other guy did the thing with Terry. And it's like, you start drawing the lines on the whiteboard where it's like, all right, red string here and red string here. And it all ends in this guy told us where the Fabergé egg is going to be in this backpack. We created a distraction on the train. We swapped it. There we go.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk
Yeah.
about how completely annoying that scene is for someone who doesn't know American law at all.
Oh, with the two hats.
Yeah, specifically
Yep.
the Yankees and the Red Sox hats, which
And
I
yeah.
only know that because I'm a wrestling fan and John
Right.
Cena likes the Red Sox.
Right. It's one of
And
those things where it's like, it even took me a minute after, because I saw him put down the Yankees hat, and I was like, okay, that must be the signal for like, let's do the distraction, and then they fight, and then afterwards someone pulls on the Red Sox hat, and I was like, oh, that was the cover, the impetus for this fight, other than we're just gonna fight in a train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, it's a Yankees Red Sox argument.
Yeah. In
So
France.
dumb. In France, on a train going from France to Amsterdam.
Right. Yeah, I feel like the first hour and a half of this movie is really solid.
Mm-hmm.
As
I
soon
think the
as
are really solid. Like
yep,
when you actually think it's a heist, and the planning is going off, and like everyone's getting arrested. I even like the reveal of Thingio's mother.
Linus's mom. Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
it's so good.
And she
You
chews the
just find
scenery
your
like
mom had to
crazy.
go to Rome to rescue you.
Right. One of my favorite lines of hers is like, well, think it over. And she looks at his name and says, Linus. Shoot, I almost forgot your name already. Just like, oh, that's a good drop. Like
Yeah,
she plays that real well.
yes, she does.
But like that last half hour, as soon as Tess lands, I feel like that whole movie kind of loses its way up until the last couple minutes. And we haven't even talked about Catherine Zeta-Jones, who's really good in this movie the whole way through. Whether it's flashbacks to her and Rusty or sorry, Robert, or anything else she's in this movie, like she's just, God, she's really good in this. I always forget until I see her. I'm like, yeah, man, I really like her as an actor. Like she's really good.
Yeah, it's genuinely a fantastic actress. Like unfortunately, I've only seen her in a lot of stuff where basically she's just been taken advantage of as the hot lady in the scene.
Right. Here's like this
Um,
hot sort of foreign lady, and it's like, ooh, mysterious.
yes, who would
Yeah.
later get married to the creepy white American dude, I believe. Um, I wish I could
Leonardo
remember who that
DiCaprio?
was. No, the Ant-Man Senior in Ant-Man.
Oh, yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
That's why we're doing this show, everyone. We'll get better.
I'm bad with names at the best of times. I mean, come on. Also, fun fact: Catherine Zeta-Jones is Welsh. She's
Oh,
Welsh.
interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I
Michael
think
Douglas is the person she's
Michael
married to.
Douglas. Yeah, that's right. So weird. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think I liked Ocean's 12 number 1 more than I remember, number 2
Mm-hmm.
more than I was expecting, and number
Yep.
3 seemingly way more than pretty much everybody else, which
Yeah, I still think I prefer. I probably prefer one a little bit more because it's an actual heist movie. Like you
yeah.
said, it feels like this was Soderbergh's thing where he was like, "Okay, now I got the clout. Now I'm gonna really mess with your head."
I'm going to take your money and I'm going to make something weird in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think the first movie is super tight the whole way through. And
Yes.
this movie is a little bit loose in spots. But there's something about it that I kind of really dig, even if it is like, I feel like this for most movies, even if it is a little bit long. 2 hours for this movie feels pretty long for this.
Yeah, dude, we got some ways to go if we hit the DCEU
Oh,
and
God.
specifically the amount of extended cuts that exist in that universe.
Well, we'll just have to wait for the Snyder cut to make sure that we just add like
That's the
4
plan.
more hours there.
That's the plan. Is we have
Yeah.
to. The only issue so far is we need to discuss: are we going to do Joss Whedon then Snyder, or are we going to
Right.
do just Joss, or are we going to do just Snyder?
Yeah, but behind the scenes, we've been talking about this for a little while because eventually we're going to do Marvel Cinematic and DC Cinematic and these sort of real big ones when we're looking for a season that will last the better part of a year. And our big question mark about DCEU is what is the Snyder Cut when it comes out? And
Mm-hmm.
this is definitely going to date this episode, but that's fine. And like, how much of a difference is it over the original cut? And then what combination of things will we experience? But
Yeah, but I
um,
mean, there is an extended cut of Suicide Squad.
Of
There's
course.
an extended cut of Batman versus Superman.
Oh boy.
Dawn
Okay.
of Justice. There's an extended cut of like every single DCU has an extended cut, I think.
Jeez. Man. Yeah, so I think I don't remember much, if at all, about Ocean's 13, and I know very little about Ocean's 8. I'm really looking forward to that one.
I don't know a thing about 13. I
Yeah.
keep thinking to myself, one of these is a heist job in Venice. One of them has to be. And then I
Sure.
Googled it before we started recording, and no, that's the 2003 Italian job I'm thinking of.
Oh, right. I mean, but you have to think, like, most heist movies are going to go to Venice at some point, so I guess Ocean's 12 was their shot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that's it sounds like that's it for Ocean's 12, and we'll see you next episode for Ocean's 13. Bye.
Bye.